you from Star Studios in the basement of Jupiter House Coffee in Denton, Texas. This is Coffee with a Sign Painter, a weekly podcast hosted by sign painter Sean Starr that consists of interviews with other sign painters and some of the customers and characters Sean comes across while running his studio.
Alrighty, welcome back to Coffee with a Sign Painter. Today we've got something awesome, which is my interview with the band the Cranberries. They were able to go to the studios of Pequot Media in Limerick, Ireland, and talk to us for a little bit, and want to thank them for taking the time to do it. That was a really cool thing and much appreciated. And we got to talk about a wide variety of things, including mutual admiration of the band The Smiths, which those of you that know that that's always been a lifelong obsession of mine. So, yeah, very cool, and had a nice conversation about the upcoming screening of the movie Sign Painters and Elemental Arts Festival that we'll be traveling out there for. And so I'll shut up and let you guys listen, because we had a good conversation. So here we go. My interview with the Cranberries. Blake, are we ready?
I think so.
Cool. Hey, thanks a lot for coming on. It's a really cool thing to have you guys on the show.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And before we go any further, so I fulfill a commitment. I promised Tom that I would mention his wife's baked goods that she brought for you today, because apparently they're going to have to see a marriage counselor if that's not mentioned.
Okay.
So
brownies and lemon drizzle cake, I think.
Yeah, those smelling good.
So how's it going?
Great.
Very good, yeah.
This whole show is very relaxed. I just chat with people, and there's no real agenda. So I just...
Are we on yet?
Yeah. Well, it's not live. I'm recording stuff, but...
Okay.
Yeah. So how's it going?
Good.
So, okay, I'll get the ball rolling with asking a few questions about your music, and then I guess we can just go from there. How's that sound?
Cool, yeah.
Good.
Okay. So, one of my favorite songs by you guys is Free to Decide. And I went through this horrible period of depression, and some of the lyrics really connected with me. But I'm really curious, that bird chirping sound in the song, what was that sound? There's like a little chirping sound in it.
I think that could have been... there was this mad Canadian guy that had... he had all these mad little instruments. And he came into the studio one day and we recorded loads of different things. What are those things those Australian things that spin around? Wind talkers or something like that. I'm not sure of the name. But yeah, he had all these unusual instruments from around the world, and we recorded a load of different things, and then put some in that song, put some in different songs, in between songs. So yeah, I'm not quite sure what the bird chirping is.
Oh, I liked it.
Cheers. Listen back.
So,
been a while since I heard.
Okay. Well, something I was just talking about with an interview that I did last week with Clark from the band The Toadies was the influence of the music of Morrissey, with so many people that went and pursued creative things from the era and generation that we're all part of. I was curious if you guys were influenced by Morrissey or the Smiths much. I know you worked with Stephen Street on quite a few things. Was there much of a connection there?
Yeah, I guess the Smiths probably would have been the one band that the four of us really liked. Mm-hmm. That it was the kind of common denominator. And I guess as well, it's one of the reasons we worked with Stephen initially, was that we really liked what we grew up listening to the Smiths and bands like that throughout the 80s. So it was kind of just felt like a natural kind of thing for us to go down that road. We worked with Stephen, and I'm sure, especially on our first album, kind of subconsciously that Smiths sound was kind of there in our heads somewhere. And we always, I think to this day, we're all still Morrissey fans and the Smiths and that, So for us, it was a great buzz at the time to be able to actually work with Stephen.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah.
You guys took like that period off before making your most recent album, and I was kind of curious, to work creatively at the pace that you guys did. You kind of blew up right from the beginning, and then to kind of merge into having families and owning businesses there in Limerick and everything. Is it kind of weird for you guys when you do go out and perform now that you've kind of got like this split dichotomy between like a private life and a public life like that?
Not really.
You get into it after a few weeks.
Yeah.
It just takes, not even a few weeks, a few days, I think, because we'd been rehearsing for about a month or so beforehand. So that kind of starts to get you in that frame of mind again, the performing frame of mind. And I think after maybe 4 or 5 gigs, you're back into the swing of it, and it's just like,
it's like you haven't stopped.
Yeah.
It's kind of
like riding a bike.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Even when the height of all the madness in the 90s, when we had time off, we still came back here to Limerick.
Okay.
And kind of went back to normal everyday kind of thing. So we didn't have that much time off during those years, but the little time we did have, we always came back here. So when we finished up and we came back, and then you start, you go back and do it again, it's just kind of the cycle that we've always kind of been on. So for us, it's a normal thing to just come back here, go back to normal for a while, and then you go to work then, which is
right.
The touring and the recording and all that.
Okay, very cool. Well, I know you guys know Tom, and he's done some work for some of you guys, I think, with one of you has a restaurant or something.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us what the restaurant is, or do you like to keep that fairly low key?
No. It's a restaurant in the centre of town, the Sage Cafe. Tom done some sign work there before for me, so yeah.
Okay, yeah. It's we've kind of had this campaign with the film sign painters that we work with the directors. Support your local sign painter, and so I always enjoy talking to people that have done that, before the trend came along, where people started looking at it again. It's a lot of you guys, have kept people like us alive through that period of, when computers started to take over in our industry. It was like it devastated everything for all of the craftsmanship and the artistry that went into making signs. It kind of just blitzed it out. So it's nice to see that you guys supported him there in your hometown. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the project that we've got coming up that we'll be traveling out there for, and this whole thing with Elemental Arts Festival, the Corbett Suicide Prevention Center, or Patrol. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's something you guys are passionate about, right? Can you tell us exactly what that is?
Yeah, well, they're unfortunately here in Limerick we have a kind of a high enough suicide rate or attempt at it, and the Corbett guys, they're on the bridges across the city, and they kind of throughout the night when everyone else is at home in bed, they're out patrolling the bridges to make sure that if anybody is contemplating suicide, that they get to them before they can get out over the bridge. Really, is what they've been doing for the last few years. Especially, I think, since kind of the whole recession kicked in and the downturn, a lot of people have, taken that way out of it, and these guys have saved more lives, I think, than any of us will ever know.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's a similar crew like that in San Francisco with the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, that they'll just spot people that look like they're not doing well and go up and talk to them. think it's an awesome thing. So
Yeah, it's great.
yeah, it's some of the artwork that'll be in the exhibit. They'll be sold off to help support them, which I think is a really nice thing. And so, what do you guys? What other creative pursuits do you guys have?
Well, I think a lot of the time when we get time off, the first while is always kind of spent just getting back to, because we all have families and lots of kids now, that you spend a lot of time with them more than anything else.
Sure.
And then once you kind of spend a bit of time in that, we dabble in other kind of smaller projects. Nothing would be on the scale of the Cranberries ever, because that's a bit of a monster in itself. So, to have that once in your life you're lucky,
Sure.
And then, so it's nice to kind of just work with, I think we've all kind of been involved in a lot of local stuff more than anything else, like helping out bands here in town and kind of in different ways, between recording or giving advice or, whatever way you can develop things like that. And it's something that we kind of all enjoy doing as well.
Okay. Very cool. So, trying to think of some other things, I know different things are, have impact regionally. Like in this part of the world, you guys were like this huge refreshing thing for those of us that really loved music of the Smiths and Morrissey. And, when Morrissey broke off to do his own thing, I think that left a void in a lot of people's lives musically that were really into that music, which here, that was like this tiny little sliver, of a culture of people that really loved all of that kind of music from over there. So it was a really cool thing when you guys came like right after that split, I think, on the scene. And that was a refreshing thing because it was like intelligent music continuing.
Thanks. Cheers.
Yeah. Sorry. I know that probably makes you uncomfortable.
No, that's good.
One of the things I've been talking with some others about too is just the influence I think that music of that period had on so many of us that did pursue creative careers. Because I think part of it was the isolation that a lot of us felt, and we were able to not feel so isolated through music, with people that we were like, okay, I kind of get where they're coming from, and I think that specifically, like someone like Morrissey, I think that's why he had such a big effect, is it just kind of made people not feel so crazy.
Yeah, especially when you're a teenager, I think that really you can relate to a lot of those lyrics.
Yeah.
Of kind of, I don't know, just feeling like no one understands you or whatever.
Yeah. So that period when you guys were teenagers in Limerick, what was that atmosphere like?
Well, we all got on great, and we all had a great laugh. But the city itself was quite depressing. I think it was the 80s. There was lots of unemployment, and it was very grey and very kind of dour. Like Manchester would have been, I suppose. So, there's similarities in that respect of the misery. You can relate to the misery of that, But we just tried to have a laugh and get kind of banish the misery by just laughing it off and then having a laugh amongst ourselves. And
and I think that's where the internet's maybe like a blessing and a curse. It's like I think it's made people, especially creative people, less isolated, but at the same time it's kind of taken the specialness away. I was talking to that guy Clark about this of when you used to get an album, an actual vinyl album, there was that intimacy where you'd be like just totally zoned in on the photos and the artwork and the lyrics and everything else, and now everything's so overexposed that some of that specialness is gone. What do you guys think?
Yeah, like you don't actually have the physical thing in your hand anymore. You know, like we all do it still. Like we found, especially if you're on tour, You don't have the luxury of going out to record shops and that, so you have the convenience of just being able to download an album that you really want to hear, and it's great for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you still can't beat, the old days of going in, buying this big huge album. Like going home, you open it up, you had the artwork, the lyrics, the whole kind of thing of it that it's kind of gone now. I have noticed, like, over the last few years, bit by bit, there is kind of a lean back towards vinyl. It's very small, but it's still, I see it with my own kids, they're starting to buy vinyl again, but it's still not on the scale that it would have been when we were growing up. So it's kind of, the internet has kind of killed that to a certain degree.
Yeah, some of the mystique,
Yeah, like, I don't even think people buy CDs anymore, because that was the first thing, obviously, after vinyl faded, CDs, and then, but now, I don't think anybody does that anymore either. It's just, it's all.
There isn't even a record store in the centre of town in Limerick.
Really?
So, it's
all gone, huh?
There was, but gone,
And now half the time an album is up online before it's even meant to be released anyway these days. So, it ruins that. The kind of expectation side of it is gone a bit as well.
Yeah.
There are pros to it as well, where, like, I've noticed, like, with stuff like Spotify, you probably get to hear bands that you wouldn't, if you have a question in your head, am I going to like it or not, you wouldn't have bought the album, but the upside is you can listen to some tracks now beforehand and kind of maybe discover bands that you wouldn't have, without things like that.
Right.
So there's a kind of there's two sides to it, really.
Yeah, and I think that's like I said, it's the blessing and a curse kind of thing, because I've discovered a lot of music that I know I would have never come across, especially now there's just so much content. But, the downside is, that kind of magic and mystique is a little bit gone, because things are just so accessible. Because it used to be, the cover of you guys' first two albums with you guys on the couch and everything, that was just this iconic image, I think, that really, like, blazed into everyone's minds, because you could see it. I mean, now the album covers like 1 square inch, in iTunes or whatever. You don't even know what you're looking at.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Yeah, so at any rate, what you gonna do, Life changes. So I'm looking forward to coming and exploring your city. Tom's been a really good ambassador. He's been pointing out things to me that it sounds like you guys have a neat thing going on there.
Yeah, it's dramatically different from when we grew up. It's a brighter city now than it was, and I think last year we had the City of Culture here, and it kind of, it brought a lot of light to things that are in the city that probably a lot of people didn't even know were here. And some of those things have continued on into this year as well. So it's great to kind of see it, that there is an appetite there for that kind of thing. I think maybe before that people thought there wasn't, and think there just wasn't anything happening. But definitely over the last few years, there's a lot more happening.
Yeah, looking forward to exploring all of that. I think that'll be cool. Yeah. So, are you guys involved at all, like with the Elemental Arts Fest, or in any way, or not really? Or?
No, we're going to obviously come down to look at the movie and everything. We're looking forward to that.
Okay, very cool. Yeah. Have you guys been able to see like the trailer online or anything?
Yeah. Tom sent us the link there. It looks great.
Yeah, they did a beautiful job. They really told the story of like that transition of almost everything. Well, everything for the most part was done by hand for centuries.
Yeah.
And then there was just this hiccup where everybody wanted to be corporate and slick and polished, and anybody that had even I always tell people now it's the slight imperfections of hand painted signs that really connect with people. But there was that period of time where everyone wanted perfection, perfect squared off Helvetica letter corners and everything else, and that was just a really ugly period for those of us that worked in that field.
Yeah.
It's similar to what happened with music as well, you know, when the transition to digital came in and everything was so slick in the 80s, and it just lost its character, I think.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of, those mistakes that kind of draw you in, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you listen to Led Zeppelin, and, you know, a lot of that old stuff was pretty sloppy, but pretty awesome. So
Yeah.
and like Bob Dylan's voice is not a great singing voice, but it's Bob Dylan, man.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that is something that's artistically been. I think there's a refocusing on the appreciation for those imperfections, but in that humanness. But you know, I think musically and visually and everything else. There's just such a sanitizing of things that it kind of lost all of its soul, you know?
Yeah. They can be too polished, things, you know, they can be too shiny and new.
Yeah.
It's nice to have those little imperfections.
Now, because, you know, because you guys had so much success, do you guys still get together and just jam for fun?
No. No.
Is it just like a job now?
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess in some ways, because it's like when you have kids, when we all started having kids, it completely changed the dynamic.
Yeah.
Because you'd have to look at tours, and we used to go away, you know, you'd pack a bag, go, and you had no idea when you were coming back. It could be a month, it could be 3 months, it could be 9 months, you know. Whereas we had to kind of refocus things and go, I need X amount of time off, I got to get home to the family. And you know, like we lived with each other for a very long time on a bus, you know, just kind of for many, many years. So it kind of, when we finished up with it, you wanted to be with your family and kind of get away from the whole thing. And, you know, we realised as we got older that there was more to life than just the band, because it was such a massive part of our lives for a very long time.
Well, that's awesome that you've got your priorities straight. You know, I know there's a lot of people that I was reading about Jack Nicholson the other day, and he's like coming to this realization that he was like this womanizer, and no women trust him, and that he's going to die alone. And it's just really tragic. It's like, wow, man, you should have invested in your personal life, dude. It's kind of terrible.
Yeah.
But so. You guys don't feel that that urge to like do something creative musically just for fun, or is it just it just takes too much time away from your personal life?
But I think if we decided we were going to do it like we did a few years ago, around 2009, was it?
Yeah.
We went back again. You know, that when we get back into it, it suddenly consumes everything again. You're doing it, you're away all the time, and you're writing, and you're in the studio, and we completely focus on that then when we get back into it. So if it's something we do again, and I'm sure we probably will, that, you know, we'll need it at a time when we can all focus on that and not have kind of other things going on at the same time. Because as I said, it's such a big thing when we take off, that you have to kind of commit 3 years of your life, really, you know, to the thing.
Okay.
Because what ends up happening, sometimes you cut a tour short, or you don't go to one territory, and next of all you get all these kind of fans that are like seriously pissed off with you.
Right.
So you kind of have to, you know, you're trying to keep everybody happy.
Yeah.
And that's what, you know, and that's why it takes so long then.
Did the success freak you guys out at all?
At the start, I think, yeah. Then after a while, you get used to it, and you just kind of go, okay. We were lucky that we could escape back to Limerick, you know.
Yeah.
I think after the first and second album, it just calmed down. People got used to seeing us around. It's like, oh, there's your man in the Cranberries, and that's it. You know, no big deal. But yeah, you know.
I don't know if we ever realised how big.
Yeah.
When you're in it.
Yeah.
You know, you don't realise till it's over.
And you're busy doing it. So.
Yeah, you know, it's just another kind of day at work for us.
Okay.
And then it's like years later, you look back and
you're like, wow, that was crazy.
Realize, you know, when you see how much you've actually done, you kind of realise then, which is probably for the best.
Yeah, I mean,
if you were to think about it too much at the time, you might, you know, get freaked out inside.
Yeah.
On how they are.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
Somebody's creaking back there.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I know you guys are all busy and you're running businesses and you have families and all that, so I don't want to dominate your time, but I think it's really cool that you took the time to do this.
Thank you.
And we're looking forward to coming out there and working on that project, and all will be revealed eventually. We're still sorting out ideas. Did Tom share with you any of the stuff that we've worked on so far?
Just a few weeks ago, kind of ideas of what it could be,
right? Okay.
You know, but not since then. He was still looking for a wall, really, at that point, a spot to work on.
Yeah,
so,
he's been sending me photos of different walls, and we're trying to figure out A, what'll be the best one, and then B, can we get the people to let us do it?
Yeah.
And keep it there.
Yeah.
But I know we've got he's been pursuing some other options of maybe doing them in panels.
Right.
And then all the panels will be assembled, and then those panels could possibly even travel. Because the focus of the project is taking that positive message from some of your lyrics and kind of empowering people with it, so that they can draw something good from it.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
It's great.
Looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah. It'll be fun.
Yeah. Be cool.
Cool. All right. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. See you in September.
Bye.
Okay, we'll see you guys. Have a good one.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I'm not going to lie, and I'm not going to try to be all Mr. Cool. That was like the coolest thing ever. Cranberries on Coffee with a Sign Painter. Awesome. Talk to you guys next week.
Choose, or I will not live there.
the Sign Painter is brought to you by the Big D Speed Shop in Dallas, Texas. You can find licensed apparel of Sean Starr's original designs at bigdspeedshop.com. The show is also brought to you by Full City Rooster Coffee Roasters, makers of the Sign Painter's Blend. Coffee that Sean drinks in the studio every day. Now shipping worldwide. FullCityRooster.com. Thanks for listening to Coffee with a Sign Painter, hosted by Sean Starr. You can find all sorts of info about the show and sign painting, including previous episodes, at our website, seanstarr.com.